Well, hello everyone. Thank you for coming out and checking this out. This is, of course, the 13th Note podcast. For some of you who's been with us the whole entire time since the beginning of the film, the 13th Note, I want to thank you and want to just I can't say it enough that your participation really helps us in spreading the words about art of mastery. So if you haven't seen us before, I would recommend definitely go check out our Rumble channel, the 13th Note, Art of Mastery. And we're starting to branch out through podcasting. My friend Josh Reed at the Rip Hill Project encouraged me to bring out more talents and stories from many different masters throughout the world, not just in the music business or, from the music industry. So, by saying that, I know yesterday was opening day for baseball. So today, I was very fortunate to bring someone to the level of art of mastery to present to the world. His name is Joe Zeller. He is the master pitching coach and the master of knuckleball for the Zeller Pitching Academy. So here we are. Let me bring him in. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going, man? Good. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, man. Because, we always are interested in the level of refinement, mastering, development, and those things. And I know from being in your pitching academy that I just have seen so many different levels of students that you have encouraged and developed through careers or through schools and through their seasons. And let's just start with this. I know we touched a bit about your history as a player. So let's talk about the inception of when you were a kid. Do you remember the moment that you were introduced to baseball and your interaction of seeing your first baseball game and then playing your first baseball game?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do actually specifically remember the very first time I was ever introduced to baseball. My first sport was soccer. Loved it. I was a great athlete, but my dad wasn't, an avid soccer fan or player. So, it was just kind of athleticism. Then when I was 7, I remember he, took me outside in the backyard and then started throwing the ball with me. And I was like, okay, it's a new sport, wasn't like, totally taken with it, but it was fun to play catch. And then the next day, same thing. And the next day. And so there I am, 7 years old. I'm like, okay, my dad's kind of into this, right? This is his thing, right? So that was like kind of became his project. And then basically, within, I'm not exactly sure, weeks or months, he would start asking me, so do you like baseball, more than soccer now? Because it was just totally, that was his project, was to get me to be a baseball player and to see how good I could, become. And I guess he played high school, but he was really a wrestler, a top wrestler,
Okay. Yeah.
till he was did athletes in action after playing Division 1, so wrestled, kind of into his late 20s. So he knew, and all of his brothers were wrestlers. His dad was a wrestling coach, so it was a family of athletes that understood like what it takes to get mastery.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting because then he was able to take all that he learned from that, not having been a baseball, like high level baseball player, but take the level of understanding from what it takes in another discipline and then to train me in baseball. And so, and then I use so much of what I learned from him and what I'm doing. And probably a lot of the stuff that you've been talking about with mastery, it's universal. I learned so much of this from my dad. 1% better every single day was from a kid learning that.
Wow.
And then as far as first game, I mean, I remember the first MLB game I went to, probably 8, and I was, at that point, it was love. Seeing the field, you go out there the first time, Angel Stadium, because I grew
Yeah.
up in SoCal,
Okay.
totally in love. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to drive by that stadium every day.
Yeah.
Angel Stadium, Anaheim. Yeah, it's such a unique situation that your dad being a
Hmm.
wrestler, not really a baseball player, but yet saw something that he could have time with you and develop. You
Yeah,
know,
it was really interesting to see. And so I'm interested in, mastery as well. I mean, I'm a coach. And
yeah,
so it's crazy how, disciplines can, you can go from one to another, but you understand the concept of what it takes, and then
Yes.
you can achieve mastery in different things. So I learned that from a young age. It was basically, practicing every single day from very, very young. My dad would take me out and we just do 100 ground balls,
Wow.
100 swings. Yeah, from a very young age. And, here I am as a little kid, not really understanding that other people aren't doing that.
Yes.
I
Yes.
thought, okay, that's just normal. But then when I started, playing games, I was, more advanced. And by the age of 12, I was on the number one team in the country. And
Wow.
so, and I'm athletic. My dad was a wrestler, but I'm not like super big, right? Like most
Mhm.
guys are going to be, 6'2", 6'3". So I still was just by skill alone, basically was able to be on a top team.
Yeah.
So I'm just so thankful to my dad, honestly, for, giving me that foundation and just the understanding of what it takes to master something.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
And when you start to play baseball, did you notice the level of I would say skills and techniques that was above your teammates? Did you notice that right away, or did it take a few years before that came out?
Yeah, I think that like right away I saw that I was good. But
Mhm.
I was athletic. I was used to being good at soccer, but there's just kind of like you can see between the two. Soccer, my dad didn't train me every day. So it was
Mhm.
just raw athleticism because that wasn't like his thing.
I see. Yeah.
Baseball was his thing, and it was training every single day. So it was like, I would say when I first started baseball, um, I was good, but then it probably took like a solid year or maybe, for I was like really exceeding, other players. And when you're so young, and that's the thing, when you're young, it's like you don't really meta cognate the same way of like, oh, I'm surpassing my peers. It's just kind of like you go out there and you're doing good and it's fun.
Mhm.
Right. And so
Yeah.
that's where it's like it takes my dad to understand the process of learning to make it happen. As I'm a kid, I wouldn't know that, oh, if you practice every single day for, you're going to get better. I did.
Right. Well, and at this point, when you're saying became the number one team in America,
Yeah.
were you playing? Were you traveling a lot as a kid?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was San Diego Stars. And so I lived in Orange County. So it was an hour drive south. And then from the age of 11 to when I stopped playing when I was 26, I was on a plane at least once a year to play.
Mm.
Sometimes, 10 times a year. So that was
Wow.
like my whole life growing up. I think I went to Cooperstown, New York 3 times, once as an 11-year-old, twice as a 12-year-old.
Wow.
I played in Dominican Republic once or twice, Cuba one time, even when it was like closed down because we got some special exemption for like Team USA.
Wow.
So yeah, just tons of crazy experiences like
Right.
that. Yeah, really, really unusual.
So to be on a team at such a young age, is this something that your father kind of found the path and the way from resources, or how did that come about? Because I'm sure there's a lot of interest for talented players to be able to excel and go to different levels like that. Can you share a little bit in regards to how did you get on a team like this?
Yeah, I'm not 100% positive like how my dad found that exact team, but
No.
like nowadays, if you're looking at travel ball, there's like, 100, there's like websites that have everybody ranked, right? There's like thousands of teams everywhere.
Mhm.
Back then it was, I'm born in 87. So this was like late 90s when I started playing on these top teams. So it
Yeah.
wasn't as big, meaning that the teams were actually really stacked with talent.
Mhm.
Um, and not as watered down maybe as they are, a little bit today, but they're still stacked teams today. So
Yeah.
it must have just been that, yeah, probably my dad heard from friends, because you know how it is as you get good at things, the circle of competence just gets smaller and smaller, and then
Yeah.
word spreads. So something like that. And then also there's like a lot of recruiting that goes on
Okay.
at those ages, and it's
Yeah.
even more today. So the story was with the Stars is like the San Diego Stars, the team when I was 12, is that they had won the 12U AAU national championship the past 2 years, and I guess it had never been done 3 times in a row. And so the guy that ran it, Lyle Gabriel, he really wanted to do a three-peat. So he stacked this team like insane.
Wow.
And so I'm not
Yeah.
positive it was like my dad probably, heard about it, but I think that they might have reached out or friends
Okay.
or something told him. But yeah, and then I
Yeah.
went down there, had a kind of like a tryout tournament, did really, really good at that, and then kind of became the leadoff hitter, shortstop, and one of their main pitchers kind of like right away.
Okay. Well, that's an incredible feat, I think, for a young man, right?
Mhm.
Because of coming out of the tween, going into teen. That
Yeah.
is, I think, a huge point of where a child's growth start to solidify and start to get the mindset down. And you
Totally.
had a discipline at a
Mhm.
very early age to develop. And
Mhm.
we see this on musicians and like pianists,
Mhm.
classical pianists often starts at 5-6 years old.
Mhm.
So for you to do this at baseball and then elevate yourself to a level of competition at the biggest stage of your age group is phenomenal. It's just
Mhm.
I would say the unique experience, and it contributes to your current success. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So when you're playing at this time, give me an idea. Do you remember the mindset, or were you just as a kid having a great time playing the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that it definitely, you know, helps me relate to kids that are, playing at a because it's like I was saying, when you're young, you don't even realize kind of the magnitude of what you're doing. It's just you're having fun, but then at the same time you're nervous because it's like, you're going out there, it matters to people because like your dad and like my grandpa would be out there all the time. So they're spending all this money on flights, hotel rooms and stuff. And so
Wow. Yeah.
it matters. And today, a lot of the teams will fly kids out and pay for their hotel rooms. I think that I got probably free flights, but I don't know if they were putting us up in rooms. It's a different thing now. But
Yeah.
I would get nervous. Absolutely. I think that's totally normal. And at the same time, trying to have fun. But yeah, I would say that, yeah, I always struggled with getting nervous. I think that probably most people do, and you try to be tough, and not like let it show. But I think that's
Yeah.
pretty common.
Sure, sure. Especially as a kid
Yeah.
who's on already going into a game knowing this is a bigger stage than just our
Yeah.
neighborhood little league,
Hmm.
right? So, was there any kind of technique or paradigm processes that you did to kind of get yourself calmed down, ready for the game, or you just went with it and let the energy take you wherever it went?
Yeah, great question. I mean, looking back, I wish I had more training on how to get into the right mindset, but our coaches
Yeah.
did to help us with that a little bit. So I'll give you a couple of examples of what they would say. So we go to the AU National Championship and we're all nervous. We're all 12-year-olds, right? And
Hmm.
so our coach brings out the record book and he shows us it's all, previous star players. He's like, we own this place. And he'd say, I want you walking around at this tournament with the same confidence that you walk around at your little league.
There
You
you
know,
go. Yeah.
have that mindset that you belong, you're the man, and then just imagine you're in little league and you're going to dominate everybody. And so that was the way he taught us to kind of deal with all that pressure.
Mhm.
And then one of the funniest things he said to us was, this is at a different tournament. He said, he told us at a tournament, he's like, I want you to walk. And this is a 12-year-olds. Think about this. He's like, I want you to walk around here with your balls swinging like gorillas.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that made us laugh and yeah, just super confident. That was what he, knew would work for us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good motivation, having your coach kind of
Mhm.
give you the history of it and then saying,
Yeah.
hey, carry yourself with head high.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's all in your mind after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is a great encouragement. I know that some of my coaches, when I was growing up, really didn't even say anything, just go play your game. So therefore,
Totally, yeah.
your team is not unified. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because the thought process and the paradigm is somewhat compartmentalized and shattered through all the players, opposed to coach rallying it up and says, hey, everybody get your minds together and, carry,
Mhm.
walk around, like you have cojones of gorillas. I mean,
Mhm.
that to me, it's almost brilliant in a way, because it made
Yeah.
everybody relax and laugh about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Exactly.
was good. That was really good. So how long did you do this? And then you just end up being in a high school team? How was that transition?
Yeah, so I was on the San Diego Stars for 2 years, 12 and 13. We won the whole thing when we were 12. I pitched the
Okay.
championship game, and then 13, I think we took like third in the national championship. So an incredible run. And then 14U, I was on a team called the Rebels, and that was a local team actually. And I think just hand selected. The coach, picked a bunch of guys, and then also the parents that knew we had good players, kind of got together as like a combination thing. And we ended up going to the national championship that year and took second. And so
Wow.
yeah, pretty good run at that age. And then that, high school would be next year. So at that point, I was known. Also, it helps that, I mean, my dad taught at the high school I went to. So he's friends
Okay.
with the
Yeah.
coach. So it's like I was already, known at the high school. And then all of us, I think there was like 3 or 4 of us from my 14-year-old team that went to the same high school,
Mhm.
maybe 5 of us, but we were all like 5 really good players. So it's like the high school coach generally knows who the good players are coming in. And so that helped. And then we go in, and like we didn't play on it like the feeder teams for the high school. We just went in, and he knew who we were. And then and then high school, yeah, and high school was a lot of fun. And then basically I made varsity as a sophomore. I was the only one, honestly, looking back. That
Mm.
was tough because it's kind of nice to be with like your peers, your friends.
Yep.
So that was a tough year. Performed okay, but it was just like tough when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the next 2 years was a lot of fun. At one point in high school, we were ranked like 25th in the country. I think we were like second in the state. So we had a really, really good high school team too.
Yeah. That's awesome. So just up to the point from playing little league to travel ball to high school, you've always been around winning culture. What can you say
Oh
that?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
100%, yeah.
yeah, that to me, I think that's big, because now you have a standard being set that you're following virtually every season, every year as you grow, and that
Mm-hmm.
to me was such of a, um, I think, key ingredient
Mm-hmm.
to your future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, at the end of your high school, going into senior year, I'm sure even in junior year, scouts were coming to see you. Am I right?
Yeah, I had yeah, it's like it's when you're in high school, you'll have some scouts, but a lot of it is also the showcase events. And I was on like scout teams.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think I got scouted for college at like a showcase event. There's like 30 scouts there. It's kind of what it's set up for. It's like mostly like colleges.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I got seen there, and then they kind of like will follow you for a few more games. Like I think they reached out right away and then followed me to make sure it wasn't just like a fluke, that I was
Yeah.
good. And then that kind of starts the process, for college.
Right. And where did you go to college?
So freshman year, I went to LMU, and then
Okay.
I transferred to the Master's University after that.
Okay. And was there a strategy behind that change?
Strategy behind the change was well, so the Masters is like a Christian school, and so like my youth pastor in high school went there,
Okay.
and so I just kind of like always kind of wanted to go there.
Hmm.
And it's like I would say this, that like for me it was really good because I was like really, really, really good there. And my freshman year, I had like some kind of injuries, not like super bad, but with like my arm, it wasn't. So I didn't know for sure if I was going to ever reach the higher levels of velocity. So it was important for me to really get confidence back after kind of having like injuries,
I see.
wasn't like
Yeah.
I couldn't pitch at all, but like my velocity went down like almost 10 miles an hour.
Wow.
And so, which is pretty severe.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I was throwing like low 80s, but I ended up playing second base. And I did pretty good. I hit 296, so almost 300 at a good Division I school. And then
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pitch after. So I think that was part of it, was like, okay, I want to make sure I'm able to like pitch, even if my arm's not 100%. But then, somehow my arm came back, and it's all a part of like helping me teach kids now about like arm health and how your arm can bounce back from things and what you need. So it wasn't like I pulled anything. It was just kind of like straining stuff
Hmm.
from not
Yeah.
warming up properly. So basically what happened, it was Christmas break. We had weeks off, and then we'd come back and throw a bullpen. So I didn't
Yeah.
throw for 2 weeks. Then I tried to throw full speed, and then my arms like messed up.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
now I'm like super, it's super important for me with kids or anybody, like if I'm working with, you or anyone else, to like, okay, making sure that we're on ramping our arm is the term,
Hmm.
so that you build it up gradually so that you don't go from not throwing where all the muscles tighten up
Hmm.
to just throwing full speed. You can totally blow it out, injure it. That's what happened to me. Fortunately, it came back and I got my velocity up higher than ever.
Good.
But I wasn't sure if that would happen. So I guess that's part of the strategy of
Yeah.
why. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to be throwing hard enough for Division I anymore.
Right. Right. So
Mhm.
that came back around what age? 19,
Mm,
20?
Yeah, like 19. So yeah, I heard, or yeah, 19 to 20. Yeah, like my middle of my freshman year heard it, and
Yeah.
then it kind of came back like maybe, yeah, like I threw a bullpen for my coach, the new coach. I was
Yeah.
like 83, and then like a few months later, um, you know, during the sophomore season, before the season, like in the fall, I was up to 91. So it just like came back. So I don't know how exactly. I think a lot of times the answer is just rest.
Yes.
We want to do so much, but a lot of times the answer is just, let it rest for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's an underwhelming understanding of how your body can repair itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with how well you rest and how well you eat.
Hmm.
Nutrition plays a huge part in healing. So,
Hmm.
do you have anything as you were growing up through this? Because as a teen, between to teen to almost 20, there's a huge physiological growth and change. Did
Yes.
you do anything different, or were you a typical American teenager meeting you at McDonald's on Friday nights?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, my dad was definitely into what I ate and working out and everything like that. So when I was in high school, I was going to a place called like MVP Sports Performance, and I was super strong, for my size, but I was always,
Mm,
very um, wiry, strong, had a hard time putting on weight. And so, like, for example, like I was able to, bench like 225 in high school when I was only like 150 pounds. So I was like
wow.
light,
Yeah.
but I was strong. Um, and so my dad wanted me to get bigger, but I just like could barely do it. And after my freshman year at LMU, my coach told me, I was too weak to hit a sack fly,
Hmm.
which is like, it was, I didn't like that. You know what I mean? Like, who wants to be told that when you're a young man? You're like
Yeah.
19 years old, oh, you're weak. So I went from like 160 freshman year, and then sophomore year, I came back like 200, and I got up to like 212 was my heaviest.
Wow.
So spent the whole off season and the end of that year just kind of like really researching how to get bigger and stronger, how to put on weight. I mean, I was on bodybuilding.com like every day for hours, like researching that, which has helps me a ton now with like helping, my students. But I put on like, yeah, 40 something pounds, and
Yeah.
you know, a lot of it muscle, some fat. You know, that's going to happen as you're putting on weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely took that super serious. Where I was like, you know, having food with me if I was going someplace, I'd have like a can of tuna, making sure I'm getting my protein.
Mhm.
Just kind of stuff like that. Really taking it serious. Having a gallon of water with me a lot of times, making sure I'm always hydrated. So I took that serious, and that made a huge difference. I'm sure as helped my arm repair, but then also just helped me throw harder, helped me hit a lot farther, and so it made a big difference for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great insight in regards to your training and how you utilize
Mhm.
your dieting and your training regimens to gain more. And
Mhm.
with that being said, let's talk about the mindset of this. At this point, where you're doing researching on, repairing and building your body, how much were you doing researching in regards to the facet of the game or history of the game and things of that pertaining to baseball?
Um, I think that like at that point, particular point, I was like just so focused on like getting bigger. I think the couple years before that, I would do a lot of research on that type of stuff, facets of the game. I would go through phases. Like I think that you know, when I was in pro ball or even after, I would really research like sabermetrics and analyzing the game a lot.
Hmm.
But at that point, I was just so focused on getting bigger
Yeah.
that it just seemed like I was very tunnel vision. And I think that can happen with young men when you have a goal, and then especially I had like a fire lit under me when my coach is telling me you're too weak. You know, I didn't like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's part of honestly, that's part because if I met that coach today, I would be like, "Hey, thank you, man, for being honest with me," right?
Yes.
Because when you look back, and I'll tell you this, okay? So to me, the most important people in my life, you know, besides like, you know, my, you know, mom and grandma, but it's like the dad and coaches, right?
Yes.
Because and so at my dad's funeral, for example, I'm like holding it together, giving the eulogy, holding it together. My high school coach comes up to me, I just like break down, you know, in
Mhm.
tears because that to a young man, to me, is what makes you and molds you. And they're tough on you. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you, when you're a young player, a lot of times you don't even like your coach, right?
That's right.
Butt heads with this guy. You're like, I don't
Yeah.
like this guy. And you might actually resent him. But
Yeah.
then you look back and you're like, this guy was actually one of the few people in my life that was trying to make me better.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that means more to a guy to me than anything else, really.
Absolutely. And that's the part about playing sports as a kid that I always encourage, because
Hmm.
I know I benefited a lot from it. And I think that experience brings out certain aspect of competitive spirit,
Hmm.
survival spirit,
So, yeah.
and then of course definitely how to figure things out on the
Hmm.
fly, right?
Yeah.
Those are key, I think, skills that we benefit later
Hmm.
as adults. But as a child, you don't think that when you're playing. I think it's
Hmm.
just a lot of times it's fun.
Hmm.
But because you're highly competitive, I think you were around a circle of influence that was much more advanced, much better prepared than, let's say, a group of dads who's coming home from working on cars in an auto shop. Then
Yeah.
ultimately say, okay, let's go toss the ball and then let's go hit BP and that's it.
Hmm.
you know so it takes the kids passion, I believe, that to go, okay, I want more out of this. So did you have that fire burning this whole entire time, or did you ever find yourself going, man, this is a lot of work? you
Yeah,
know
there's some interesting stories with that, man. Let me tell you, one is like in Little League, I was so I must have been, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, or something. And I remember it, I think I even said this at my dad's funeral, but it was like I remember like watching a ball bounce down or something to the stairs, and then just seeing, you know, other kids just like, you know, totally relaxed. Obviously, I don't know what's going on in their brain or their dads, but I'm like,
yeah.
Dad, like, how come it's not okay for me to just be average? And my dad was like,
Interesting.
was kind of like, why would you ever want to be average? And so that's, for whatever reason, out of a million things that happens with your dad, right? Certain memories like stick out.
Yes.
And that was one of them. And so I would say, yeah, I mean, I had a passion, but I don't know if it would have ever developed the way it did without like my dad just like wanting me to be good. And it's just so interesting, like looking back at it, because you could easily make an argument of like, well, how come it's like your dad's going to just be tough on you? He's not just happy if you just have fun or whatever. It's like, okay, well, maybe when I was 11, I would have been like, oh, I have a great dad. My dad doesn't care. He just wants me to have fun. But now, as an adult, I'm like, thank God that my dad was tough on me, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so what's better to like be thankful for your dad for like your entire adult life, or when you're,
Yeah.
for a few years when you're a kid. So that's what the debt I owe to him
Yeah.
is, that he was like that. And I mean, it's like his dad was like that, is, because that's just the culture. Like you're saying, is that if we're gonna do this, we're gonna be our best. And I think that's like, yeah, you want to reach your potential.
Mhm.
Why else are you out there? That's part of being, I think that's part of being human, is like seeing how good you can be at a different, as a discipline, right?
Yes.
Isn't that like a quote by even like Socrates, right? It says something like shame for a man to grow old without knowing what he's capable of physically, right?
Right.
Something like
Yeah.
that. And it's part of being a human. Like you want to find a discipline, whatever it is,
Yes.
and master, as the
Yes.
best you can.
Yes. And that's the incredible parts that I think we're more and more, as the way the consciousness is expanding and how the world is awakening in the different reality today, that you see that there's a lot more refinement and people looking to refine than I
Mhm.
would say 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And it's extremely exciting because all of a sudden we have this desire to be uh, the best of ourselves, right?
Mhm.
This is something that as the culture shifts, I think this is what happens. When I was growing up in school, the cultural was cable television, MTV,
Mhm.
and home box office, HBO, because that was infiltrated into entire across the world, being the thing to be around. So all of a sudden, the importance of taking place became a focus of someone else opposed to
Mhm.
ourselves. Where
Yeah.
today you have so much out there in the media, so now you get to pick and choose, like going to the world's greatest buffet, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden it comes back to what is good for me. What do I want?
Mhm.
So that becomes a big thing. Um, while you're going to school and playing baseball and so forth, let's take baseball out of the equation. What kind of kid were you?
Huh. Yeah, good question. I mean, I was always smart. Like I played chess growing up. That was actually one of the first kind of like disciplines. I was homeschooled, so it was kind of like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
till sixth grade. It was kind of like my mom's philosophy is like whatever I'm interested in, like I let that interest, feed it. And so I was really into chess. I was really into, different things. And then obviously baseball. But as far as like once I was in school, I just didn't really like it that much. Like, homework was always a pain. So I think I had good grades in high school, because I was just like pretty good. I had like maybe like a 3.8 or something, with a lot of like AP classes. Um, so I could have had like a way higher, but like I just didn't really like homework. And I was a good test taker, really good test taker. Homework, I was like, what is this? It's busy work,
Yeah.
and and so college, it kind of like when you're on your own, it was I was so focused on baseball and stuff like that. I didn't really like the homework and all that stuff. Um and yeah, I was known for some like pranks in high school, stuff like that too, even though my dad was a teacher there, so I didn't want to go too crazy. I mean, I was like overall good kid, but I wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to be the perfect student type of kid.
Sure. But you were a
Mhm.
popular kid, I'm sure. Having dad
Yeah.
in school and then you playing sports.
Yeah, I mean, I was like friends with the people that, yeah, like from sports. I had just known them all growing up, and I was
Yeah.
like, but I wasn't like, going to all the parties or whatever. I was just, yeah, I was like focused on baseball. I remember one of the dances I left like early because I had like a game the next day, so I wasn't like
Yeah.
out partying all the time. And then also I was in the AP classes. So I was friends with like the smart, nerdy kids too. So it wasn't like I was just there, trying to be popular. I was like, yeah, I was into baseball. That was my main thing. And then good test taker got me through for the most part in high school. And then, yeah, didn't really love the homework though.
No, but that's excellent that you were well rounded. You got
Mhm.
along with everybody who walks of life, opposed to just
Yeah.
as we see in a lot of schools, that little clique of athletes or that little
Yeah.
clique of the guys that hang out behind the school, those type of
Totally.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that ultimately contributes to your well-roundedness of how you handle the diversity, how you handle people, how
Hmm.
you handle, the dynamics, basically,
Totally.
right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So, okay, so let's go ahead and take us now to the moment that you realize, hey, I'm going to get paid to play this game. How
Yeah.
did that come about, and how does that feel?
It took, well, so it's always a dream. Yeah, absolutely always a dream. And after my junior year, I thought there was a chance I would get drafted. I mean, for me, the biggest issue was certainly being undersized. So if you're a right-handed pitcher, then they want you to be like 6 foot, kind of like minimum, right?
Mm,
6'2" is kind of like, okay, that's like the size they want. 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", and then 6'4" and above is like a really good sized pitcher. So I was like um listed at like, I think like 5'10". I don't know, I can't remember. I look up, but I mean, the funny thing is, honestly, is that I was probably taller than some guys that were listed at like 5'11", 6 foot. My dad was
okay.
like a very honest person.
Yeah.
And so looking back, he could have just said I was 6 foot on the roster and it would have
Yeah.
helped my career. Um,
Interesting. Wow.
yeah, because it's like, I think they did a height crackdown on the NBA. I don't know if you heard about that, but like almost everybody was not as tall as their listed height,
That's right.
but it makes a difference for sure what your listed height is. And then
Yeah.
baseball, yeah, same thing. So I had that. Yeah, it's like a huge deal in as a pitcher. Like if I was a second baseman, it hardly would matter. But
Right.
as a right-handed pitcher is a huge deal. So that was tough to overcome. So I had like incredible control. And I threw, in the 90s, which is not overwhelming. The fastest I ever hit was like 96 my senior year, but junior year I was like 91 pretty much. So I had it basically took a scout. He started to really, really like me. And so they would always say about me is I was the pitcher that you fall in love with as you see me
Mm,
pitch many times
yeah.
with like consistency, stuff like that. Versus someone who's just like 6'5", you see me, okay, we're gonna draft this guy, right?
Yes.
So he started to really like me, and I started throwing harder my senior year too. I think that a few games that I had a bunch of scouts that I was like 92, 94, and that's going to get you signed. And then the senior year, like after that, there was like a showcase kind of like with the Cubs, and I was like sitting 92. So ultimately, yeah, I didn't know for sure if I was going to get drafted until like kind of after that, because the scout really, really loved me.
Mhm.
But it was really draft day, was like it hits and you're like, "You just got drafted." Yeah, it's like, crazy, and then the scout was like the next day, he comes over and he's like, "You're born to play baseball," and he's like, has me sign the paperwork, and then I'm off to Arizona, like, literally, like, either the next day or 2 days, like, it's very quick, and I was off to Arizona.
Wow. And
Mhm.
how did you digest that? I mean, I'm sure it's just one big excitement, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was excitement, I think, I think for me, it was a relief of more than just any feeling, honestly, because you know
That's
that it's like all of your hard work that you've put in. It's like, okay, like now I've gotten drafted. Now I have kind of like another chance. Cause I was going through my senior year of pitching, started off amazing where I was throwing like 92, 94. I was absolutely dominating. And then I kind of like hurt my arm again, maybe in the same way. And I don't know if my velocity dipped like crazy. It just dipped a little bit and something was off because I didn't perform well and my arm kind of hurt.
Mhm.
So I knew it was going to be tough because I was going to be going into um pro ball with like not my arm not really being right.
Mm.
But at least it gives me a chance to figure it out, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was and to be fair, like I've read that or I heard a major league guy say that it's like 80% of MLB pitchers are pitching through some degree of pain and like
Yeah.
40% of them are basically pitching through like almost an injury.
Wow.
So it's like not that uncommon, you know, like I
Yeah.
have stuff wrong with my arm, but I have to go play. It's like welcome to the club almost, right? Uh,
Yes.
that's like everybody. So I was like stressed about that. Like I thought it was gonna be really tough because I didn't even pitch good my senior year.
Mm.
Um, but I was relieved because now I have a chance to try to figure it out. And then it's always, something that you accomplished, that you got drafted. So that's a nice, thing in your career.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's surreal for sure. I mean, and then yeah, I felt like I'd made the most out of it, honestly.
Yes.
So I feel pretty good about it.
And at this time, are you already throwing the knuckleball?
Yeah, good question. So the knuckleball is something that I started throwing when I was just like a kid, but I never
Mhm.
threw it in games.
Okay.
It was something that I always thought about doing is throwing it in games and just never did because I always had like a really good fastball and could throw everything else, but I always had like one of the best knuckleballs on my team. So I kind of thought like even when I got drafted, it's like, well, I can now, go through the process of transitioning into a knuckleball pitcher. And actually, so my first year, just kind of like how I thought, it didn't end up going that great because my arm was like kind of hurt. So I started throwing the knuckleball in practice, throwing it in bullpens, and then really asking the coach if I could throw it. So by the end of that first year in pro ball, that's when I first started throwing it in games. And it would be really good, and then it would be bad. It was like, inconsistent. It was way more difficult going from playing catch to throwing it against hitters.
Yes.
I had no idea how hard that would be.
Right.
I learned, so much more about how hard it was more than anything. But I knew that I could throw a good one. And so then they said by the end of the year, they're like, okay, keep working on it. And then we'll see what happens next year. So then the next year is when the pitching coordinator had me throw it. And it was one of those good days where it's like, it's working well. Maybe there's a little wind or whatever. And I was getting a ton of swing and misses. And this is like in spring training. And then the pitching coordinator came up to me after, like I was just walking off and he's like, yeah, let's try this out. Like, let's, go for the knuckleball and let's see what happens. And then he's like, it's good. Your other stuff is, he said, your stuff is short, meaning like I didn't have a good enough fastball because my arm was still kind of hurt. It's like, your stuff's not good enough. Let's go for the knuckleball.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
and he liked the knuckleball because he played with like Charlie Huff.
Mm.
He got me a knuckleball catcher's mitt. So a lot of guys like it. This guy liked it. The farm director liked it. And so he was all about it. He was jazzed up about it. And so I was in a good situation with people that liked it, that were in my corner, and that gave me an opportunity to really, develop it. And I wanted to do it. They saw that, like I was always throwing against the wall, practicing it, and they saw this guy is into it. We're into it. Let's let him try it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now,
Mhm.
now look at you, right?
Yeah.
The master of the knuckleball has turned this thing into something even bigger. in my opinion, bigger than I could ever imagine that knuckleball should be or could be. I just thought it was this so-called unique pitch. I wouldn't even call it gimmick because there's too many greats that's used this pitch.
Totally.
But having to see your video on Instagram and having you to break down and talk about it, I thought it was an incredible opportunity for everyone to kind of revisit the knuckleball.
Yeah.
And then when I start to really, I guess, get serious about, okay, so let me contact Zeller's Baseball Academy and find out what this is about. I was really impressed on how you put this curriculum, this school together, and all the features that it offers. It is second to none, one of the best education systems online, bar none, of any trades. And share with us a little in regards to how did that became what it is today? And did you have this thought prior to leaving pro ball, or is this something that was born out of now what I do?
Yes, great question, man. I'll tell you the kind of the journey with that. So I played like 5 years total of pro ball, and then get out of that. And then, of course, you're like, okay, what am I going to be doing? The first thing that probably anyone that plays pro gets into is they give lessons and or coach teams. So I worked at a facility in Texas called the Banditos, was coaching like every weekend. Then I moved out to SoCal, built my own organization, Zeller Baseball. It was like a medium size. We had like 5 teams, but imagine how busy I am with like 5 teams. I'm coaching. Sometimes I go on weekends, coach 4 games on a Saturday, 4 games on a Sunday.
Wow.
Just insane. And then I do lessons during the week, practices during the week. So it was just absolutely overwhelming. And so it was, and that only finished up like, 6 months ago, maybe. And so I was doing that, and it was really great to be able to like build all that up because it taught me just tons of different skills in life, working with people. And, I had coaches that I hired to do. So just like lots of really good life skills, working with pitchers in real time in games. And you're seeing them go through the same stuff I was going through, the stress, the pressure, what they need in real time. And then it kind of got to a point where, I was like just way too busy. And I was like, I've literally probably learned, I'm like up there as far as like experience in baseball, like since I was a little kid, nonstop, like professional coaching for 10 years, probably thousands of lessons. So wanted to find a way to, get that knowledge out there. And then I met, there's a Instagram that popped up, Nick Neville, and he teaches coaches like me how to do online training. And so I joined his program, and it's a commitment, man. It's not like you're just gonna, do it, because you have to be promoting on Instagram every single day. I mean, I post probably 1 to 5 videos a day. You have to build your course. I mean, only, coaches that already have like a pretty big clientele are even allowed in, because, you want only legit coaches. But I was into that right away because I knew that I had put in all my dues as far as learning everything. And so now I'm ready to really be, teaching that knowledge. And so, and I got to plug in my laptop. Hold on 1 second. It's about to die.
Sure.
But
we don't want it to go out.
Yeah. But yeah, so that ended up having, decent success right away. And it's honestly just been growing and growing. So this is like by far the best month, or even the best couple weeks just like now. So it's like growing, but we had guys join even within like the first couple weeks of it. And so that was cool. We've had guys, international guys from France, Netherlands, and it's like just been so awesome. Like, teaching guys the knuckleball that they don't know anything about it, helping guys because when you work with guys from other countries, a lot of times they don't even know where to begin. And so I'm helping them with very basic stuff. And we've had guys gain 20 miles an hour on their fastball, even because they are so lost with their mechanics, with everything. So it's had tremendous impact. And then it's been really, really good for me because it's like you have just an unbelievable amount of knowledge that you've gained that now I can disseminate that, everywhere, which is a really, really good feeling, right? Because
Yeah.
you want people to benefit from your life experiences.
Right. And I think you share your knowledge extremely well. It's very easy to understand what you're teaching. And yet what I really are most impressed with is just how you wrote out and have your modules for your
Hmm.
curriculum. It's not just about baseball. It's not just about pitching. It's about mindsets. It's about fitness.
Hmm.
It's about nutrition. It's about all the things that encompass of individual self development, but by
Hmm.
using the medium baseball, right?
Hmm.
That part was extremely attractive. I thought
Hmm.
overall as the program, I encourage anybody who's serious about baseball that want to have the distinct advantage to sign up with Zeller's Academy. Because here's what I've definitely recognized right off the bat when we first got together and talked was like, okay, I'm not a guy who's looking for a scholarship. I'm certainly not a guy looking for a paycheck, but I am a guy looking for a win.
Hmm.
So therefore, how can you help me? And for the audience out there who doesn't know me until now, I'm 60 years old. I'm playing competitive baseball
Hmm.
with guys half of my age, and I'm delivering. And a
Hmm.
lot of it comes from the desire and the intention, and then putting in the work and taking action. However, once you get to a certain point, you're going to need assistance on pointing out flaws or correcting the nuances and things like that. That's where you came in. Once we talked about it, you knew I was serious. And that's another thing I loved about the baseball academy is that you're not just taking up everybody and anybody. You're taking people that are really wanting to commit
Hmm.
and really want to invest into their baseball career or their baseball skills. Because, like when we do our calls, Rick, he's like me, right? He's
Hmm.
not looking for a paycheck or a scholarship to D1 or any of this. We're playing baseball because we love this game.
Yeah.
So that to me, to have a go-to guru like you to
Hmm.
go, I'm throwing this, I can't hit the consistency of it. What am I doing wrong? And for you to sit down and break that down frame by frame, pitch by pitch, and then talk about it. And then ultimately, what do we think we can create out of this is gold. Because where are you going to ever have a coach, a mentor that's going to sit down with you to solve these problems?
Yeah.
Right? That to me is what you brought to the table that I've never seen really from any other baseball program. So,
Hmm.
is this exactly how it's playing out and start to flower like what you envisioned when you put this curriculum together?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's something that is like you're saying, like you didn't know that it was something that was even out there. And so I'll just give you an example of like yesterday I was talking to a kid and he was telling me about, he's going to these lessons, but he really only has like 20 minutes with the coach
Right.
and they can barely go over anything and then, the lesson's over. And then so he's like, okay, so then what do I do? Right. And then maybe you see him again, next week or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the model that, has always been out there. And so when I learned this, it's like, yeah, we can spend time to dive in, right?
Yes.
So some guys I'll see once a week and we'll just dive in for half an hour, but some guys will be on there 2, 3 times a week. They'll sending me video a bunch and we're really diving in. So it's, sometimes it could be multiple hours of really good one-on-one training, in a short period of time. And there's just no possible way that you're going to get that,
Yeah.
with in person. And so part of it for me is, educating people that this exists and how it works. And and then that it does work, because it's like going from, okay, everything's in person to now we're learning online. But if you think about it, we're always learning online. I mean, people that are watching this podcast now,
Yeah.
we're learning online.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you can go to a university fully online now.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
that's why, it makes so much sense. And then we have so much more time with the students, and you're able to get great results, because then there's also one of the biggest things is that I get to know the kids, the students better over a period of time, and see their progress, spending more time with them. And when you have that, where you have goals and your accountability, you're able to get better. Like one kid I knew in person for years, and then just since he started the online program, he always wanted to gain weight,
Yeah.
never able to, and then he started the online program, and he's gained 10 pounds just in the past 5 weeks, because now we have accountability where we're checking in with each other.
Yes. Yeah, that means a lot. That really does. As a matter of fact, that you just hit the nail on the head. Once you have a plan and a strategy, are you taking action? Then are you, being accounted for what you're doing, and
Hmm.
having a mentor like you to guide the ways. If you're falling off a little bit, I'm sure let's step it up. If you're doing great, you get the encouragement, the pat on the back. I see it.
Hmm.
I'm at the calls. I hear it. And one of the things that I really felt that it was just really a gift to parents is that because you have played through your tween, teen, high school, you were in that experience. So
Hmm.
for you to come out to share that and help guide the kids and develop the kids, it's not just somebody who just learned this from a book. You
Yeah.
have definitely decades of
Hmm.
exactly what that environment's about. So for a situation like this, if I'm a parent and I have a child that wants to play and is not very good, how much should I really invest in it? Or am I just sometimes have to admit my kid's just not very good at this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'll tell you the way I look at it. So there's definitely um a lot of people that will say, "Oh, well, my kid, he's not going to be good enough to play in the major league, so why even try? He's not going to be good enough to play even like Division 1." I don't look at it like that at all. The way I look at it is that if you're, young, you need to find a discipline that you can devote yourself to and get better at, because that's part of developing the ability to learn in general, to get good at a skill, to interact with teammates and be part of a team, which is a very important life skill. And then each, however good you get is going to make your life a lot better. And I've talked to kids like, that I got into high school, and they were, weren't even that good, but then they get into high school. I'm like, are you glad that you made your
Yeah.
high school baseball team? And I'm like, look around, like you're on the high school baseball team. Your life is better now than it would have been,
Yes.
right? If you weren't on your high school baseball team. And you, not only that, but then you learn the skills of discipline that are going to serve you the rest of your life. But just being a high school baseball player is a big thing. And so it's not a matter of like, is my kid good enough to play Division 1? It's a matter of getting him as good as he can be will definitely help his life. And so the better question is more of, should he do baseball or should he do something else? And that's more of, I think, of the question. It's not you want to pick something that your kid's going to have the best chance of success with. Like if he's like basketball, probably if you're really tall, that might be a good sport, for example. And you just kind of look at what would be, a good sport to play. But once you're in it, it's get as good as you can be, because you're going to learn the lessons from it and the disciplines, and you're going to benefit from however high you get tremendously. So I think it's a trap to fall into, like, oh, he's not that good, like, let's not work. It's like most of us aren't going to play Division 1.
Yes.
It's we're gonna enjoy the journey, and then we're gonna make make our life better because we got good at baseball. We developed a love for baseball, and you can keep playing your whole life and having fun. I mean, there's leagues like men's leagues popping up everywhere that are very competitive and a lot of fun. I work with guys that are, the oldest guy I work with is like 65 and he's still throwing like 75 miles an hour. I mean, he's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the group of guys like my age, we're so appreciative to have this opportunity that
Yeah.
we're still out there playing ball. Because,
Mhm.
this is something that most of us developed when we were before age of 10. We
Yeah.
just fell in love with this throwing, hitting thing.
Mhm.
That's the
Right.
only way I could describe it. My love for this never died, despite of what
Yeah.
career changes I might have, what other skills I developed. I've always felt baseball was something that innately that I could be great and have great time with. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay, let's flip the script real quick on when you have a kid that is showing potential, like yourself, which
Mhm.
is great,
Mhm.
strong kid, good coordination, good aptitude. Now all of a sudden you got an overbearing parent who
Mhm.
decides that I'm going to live vicariously through you because I'm going to make you the best you can be. How
Mhm.
do you address that as a manager, a coach, and a guru? How do you deal with that kind of parenting?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if like, yeah, my dad was probably like a little bit, like always there and stuff. And it's like, so I kind of like my dad, it's like it's a double-edged sword. When your dad is just he wants you to be the best, he's always there. That's good in a way, but it's also too much of that, right? So it's like I think there's a balance, and I don't know if anyone ever gets the balance perfect. I've told parents that, like my dad was like that, but I did perform better when my dad wasn't there usually. So the
Interesting.
balance for
Yeah.
me was probably like it was great that my dad was taking me out all the time and when I was young, but then he was probably, too much just like hyper focused on every little thing I did, especially, as I got older, but, so I think there's just, like it's a balance, like, I would say like, I've had, parents where they played at a very high level, I think do a pretty good job of balance where they want their kids to be working hard, practicing, and they're tough, but then they'll just go let them play, and they don't even say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but every kid is different. So, generally, I like to give the parents the benefit of the doubt before judging too quickly because, for all I know, there's more going on behind the scenes, right? I don't know
Mhm.
all the dynamics of their kid, of their relationship, and so I like to give the benefit of the doubt. I think it's almost impossible to strike the perfect balance of like, yeah, you want to be tough on your kid, but then also you want to be like, I believe in you, man. Go have fun, you know,
Yeah.
do your
Yeah.
thing and just have fun.
Yeah.
That's a tough balance. And so I would say to ones that feel like they are overbearing, maybe try, just dropping your kid off. Try that and then
Mm,
just see how that happens. Maybe your kid's going to come back and love baseball more. That doesn't mean
right.
you're a bad parent
Yeah.
that or the kid doesn't like you. That just means that's part of being a parent, I think, is just like letting your kid, have space and stuff. So I think it's a tough balance.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to be perfect with that.
Yeah. It is. You're absolutely right. You hit that nail in the head about balance
Mhm.
because it is that I think there's some pressure for the child
Mhm.
who's playing that game when their parents there. They know that this is someone who I look up to. This is someone that is,
Mhm.
taking care of me ever since I have consciousness, and
Yeah.
now I'm in baseball because they're paying for it, and I should do good because I see it on TV and I see it all around me that success is rewarded, failure is not.
Mhm.
So that is a tough nut to crack as a kid to be comfortable in that environment.
Mhm.
You know, that's
Mhm.
the part that I think that's the hardest. I know that for me, I told my parents not to come to my games after a while.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly for that reason,
Mhm.
because I don't want to talk about the game right after I'm done.
Yep.
I'm in my zone,
Yep.
and they always felt that I was just an a hole.
Yeah.
Even my friends thought I was that because I
Yeah.
don't want to talk to anybody about
Mhm.
this. Whether
Yeah.
I was a success or whether I failed, I need to be in my world until I dissipate this energy and
Yep.
let it all go. Then maybe what, an hour after food, shower, okay, I'm kind of calm, back to myself again.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the part about, I think, having a sports kid. Parents may not know how to handle if they're not an athlete background or athletic
Yeah.
in a team sport on their own. I've also seen the other side too, where dad's a player and dad's still involved, and the kids are just having the best time in the world because now they have
Mhm.
something in common. They're doing things together all the time. Training
Yeah.
is not training. Training is spending quality time with family.
Yeah.
So that's the best of the other side of the fence, you
Mhm.
know. So to have that, I think it's something that is to strive for. Like you said, it's a balance, but everything in life is. Art of mastery is about understanding that and then refining the things that's weak and polishing the ball that becomes better and better until it's so shiny
Mhm.
that you can see yourself in it. One
Mhm.
of the things that I always remember, and it came from Tommy Lasorda, repetition is a mother of all skills.
Yeah.
And I never forget that because that is to me always been the key. Me having been a teacher for music for 30 plus years, that is
Mhm.
the key factor to master an instrument.
Yeah.
It's repetition.
Mhm.
So with that, let's wrap this up with what are the things that's going on at Zeller Baseball Academy this year? What are your forecasts and what would you like to see the next level of ball playing? Especially now, what I've noticed about baseball is this long ball or 100 miles per hour. We've talked about that, right?
Mhm.
It's becoming that type of game. It's no different than NBA becomes 3-point shots
Yeah.
or flop.
Yep.
Is the game changing for the worst because we're not developing the players, or is just one of those, peaks and valley things? We're going to come back. No worries. It's going to come around again.
Yeah, no, good question about baseball. And I think about it, and this is the kind of the way I think about it in my mind is that it's just the nature of humans to always be freaking out when there's any change, you know? So it's like, think about like in the 60s, you had Bob Gibson with like a 1.1 ERA, and then they lowered the mound like, 7 inches or whatever,
Yes.
and totally changing the game. And so this is just part of the way baseball's been. You've had the dead ball era where you're throwing soft balls where no one's hitting it. That's not any fun. And then you use lively balls and they're hitting homers. And it's always changing. I think that the reality is that it's you need the fans to love it, otherwise there is no baseball. So you're always trying to figure out ways to make it more entertaining. One thing I like about, like Pitching Ninja, he says it's like, yeah, we're in the era of the pitcher. We can enjoy that, right? This is an era of baseball. And so you're going to look back in 20, 30 years, which we're probably all going to live a long life now with all the new technology, right? So we're going to look back and we're going to see we lived in a unique era, just like the steroid era was unique. Now we're in a unique era
Yeah.
and things will change. Who knows what they're going to do? They're trying different things. Like they've got the pitch clock. They've tried the bigger bases. They've tried taking away the shift. Hasn't changed things too much. So they might eventually, who knows what they'll do? They'll, lower the mound or whatever. Like things are going to change to keep it entertaining. But I think that the quickening the game with the pitch clock raised the attendance and the viewership is like really high. The game's going pretty global. I think baseball's in a really good spot, especially with the international stars like Otani. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll change too much when it's going so well right now, but it'll happen eventually. And then we'll look back and be like, man, that was an era.
Yes.
And that's the way you got to appreciate baseball. It's a historical game
Yeah.
with its different eras, and each era you have to appreciate for what it is. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then we'll be able to tell people, hey, I lived through the steroid era. I lived through this. And man, it's like it's just the best game there is, So
Yes. Yeah, I
mhm.
agree. That's great. That's great. Well, let's wrap this up. Sensei Zeller, you are an incredible teacher, an incredible mentor for baseball. And I'm so happy that I've gotten to know you and become part of your program. So let's wrap with this. Your favorite baseball memory?
Favorite baseball memory ever?
Yeah, the one that just jumps out of your mind all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I would say like it's hard to beat when you're a kid, you know, like going to the Hall of Fame when I was in Cooperstown, and I'm with my grandpa there. I think those are incredible moments. And then also just like, I remember like a jet flyover one time I pitched in Pro Bowl on July 4th. I mean, those two, but when you're a kid and you just are like, it's just such a magical thing. I don't know if you could be being a kid playing baseball. And then if you get to go to the Hall of Fame and you're around the history of it, collecting baseball cards, going to I mean, it's everything, man. It's my life. It's just an incredible thing.
Yeah. Cooperstown's a magical place. I loved it when I went there.
Yeah, magical.
So who was your favorite player when you were a kid?
So I was a big Angels fan, and so probably Tim Salmon was
really
like my
Salmon.
Yeah. Tim Salmon.
Yeah, I remember Tim.
Yeah.
I remember all the guys that era. Well, because I lived in LA when you were a kid.
Okay, yeah. So that whole team, like Garrett Anderson and Gloss, all those guys, yeah.
That and the Rally Monkey.
The Rally Monkey, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was so. Man. Yeah, that was definitely an era. And when I grew up in the 70s, the Angels weren't even sniffing playoffs like that. And for them to in the that time where they really became competitive with Socia being the manager and so forth was just incredible energy. Who's your favorite player now?
Favorite player now?
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, it's hard not to be a Dodger fan with where I'm at right now in like Redondo Beach. And so I mean, I just like the whole Dodger, like Ohtani, but then he brought over all of his buddies from Japan. It's just like they're dominating. Like Mookie Betts, like he takes batting practice sometimes at like one of the facilities close to here.
Yeah.
I really like him. I've liked Mike Trout when he was like really young, and I got to see him play when he was like 17, 18, 19. Cause he would take reps when I was with the Cubs. Like we would play against the Angels and he would come down and take reps. So I'm like watching him play when he's like 18 years old. I'm like, this guy is a freak, man.
Yeah.
And so those are a few. Yeah. I'm not like necessarily just like, oh, there's one guy. It's like, I just appreciate, just good players, but also hardworking, like good people. I'm not a fan of the guys that are, prima donnas as much.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. So let's close with this. What is the one thing that a teammate or another ball player said to you that's always stuck with you?
Teammate or another ball player that always stuck with me. Well, one time I remember this was in the shower when I was playing pro ball and I got sent down, but I got sent down after a good game.
Wow.
And it wasn't anything bad. I just got called up and then I got sent back down. That happens all the time, right? Imagine you watch baseball, man, a guy comes up, he does good, he's sent back down. Right. And he said, control the controllables. Don't think about it. Control the controllables. You can't control that. Yeah. Control what you can control. Yeah. And that's like the way you look at only way you can stay sane, right?
Yeah. That's such a wisdom right there.
Mm-hmm.
Just right there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe. I think you have definitely helped us understand the mastery of not only playing baseball, but mastery of success. The Zeller Baseball Academy is if not the finest thing I've ever seen in Baseball Academy anywhere, whether it's in person or online. I tip my hat to you, sir, for developing this for all of us. And it is something that I hope anyone out there who's seeing this, who's interested in baseball, check it out. Get in touch with Joe.
Yeah, Joe Zeller 7 is the Instagram handle. DM me there, and then we can talk more about it.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. And thank everyone here for tuning in to the 13th Note Art of Mastery podcast. And we'll see you soon. And have a great 2025 baseball season, right, Joe?
Yep. All right.
Of course, I'll see you soon, right?
Mhm.
All right. Take care, everyone. Let me find that.